If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're looking to find out what the best tool stack is to manage your outbound in a simple and effective way. In this video, I'm going to show you the perfect stack, in our opinion, for 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And so the last one is the one we use internally at the Sendo agency. We've all seen those endless lists with never-ending benchmarks, but the truth is it's easy to get lost in the abundance of tools available on the market. In this video, and with the list I'm providing as a resource, we're going to stay very focused and present to you, the tools that we actually use daily for our clients, not just some benchmark tested here and there. And before we get to the heart of the matter, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Antoine Taureau. I'm the co-founder of the Sendo agency and business-to-business ninja training programs. So what we do is help B2B companies sign more clients, thanks to outreach calls, AI, and go-to-market engineering. In the video description, you can access this shortlist that's displayed on my screen. It's freely accessible. You don't even need to leave your email or anything like that. So you'll see my list of recommendations, which I'm going to detail for you now. As you can see, all these tools are categorized by use between data sourcing, data processing, and email calls, mainly LinkedIn, warm-up, enrichment, infrastructure, inboxes for email calls, scraping, signals, etc. With visibility on pricing, even though this pricing may change. At the time I'm making this video, I've listed the prices in euros. And of course, it also depends on the plans, but precisely, I'm going to recommend certain plans for specific scenarios depending on your situation, depending on your level of maturity. And above all, as I was saying, they are classified into 3 parts: a beginner section, an intermediate section, and an advanced section. So on the different tabs here, you can directly access another view that gives you the entire stack for the selected maturity level. And this allows you to more easily see at a glance the tools I suggest you use in the stack. Let's start with this beginner setup. This beginner setup is for you if you've never done cold outbound or cold outreach, or if it's not a priority channel for you, if it's not going to be your main channel and you want something extremely simple. So what you'll find in this beginner setup, mainly at the heart of the system, is really the sequencing tool for preparing campaigns. So I recommend either Lemlist or Instantly. These are 2 well-known tools. We are partners with Lemlist at Sendo because it's a tool we like a lot, and we find it well-designed, powerful, and packed with features. The big difference between Instantly and Lemlist is that Instantly is a very good software for cold emailing, and especially if you want to start handling a lot of volume. In terms of pricing, it's going to be very interesting, because with the plan called the Hypergrowth Plan, you'll have very few limits on the number of inboxes you can connect and the number of emails you can send. In terms of value for money, it's honestly hard to beat. If you're only doing cold email now, my friends, it has the advantage of being much more versatile. And it offers you the ability to do multi-channel outreach. So the classic example is adding LinkedIn in addition to cold email. But it's not limited to just that. You can also use WhatsApp, you can also use calls, even if that's still manual. Soon you'll be able to use SMS as well, etc. So for follow-ups and tracking, it can be extremely useful and not that complicated to set up. So there you have it, Aimlist Instantly for, let's say, the core of the machine. The other tool I recommend for this beginner setup is Mailpool, because no matter what, if you're doing cold emailing, you'll have to buy mailboxes made for that, dedicated at least to your cold emailing. And I talk about it in other videos. You need to set up a technical configuration for deliverability reasons, which is a hassle. I go into detail about this in a video where I quickly present Mailpool's features, which I won't do here. But it's a service that lets you buy your domains and mailboxes in a super simple, super fast way, fully configured for cold emailing. And on top of that, it's twice as cheap as if you were to buy them directly from Google or Microsoft. So you might as well use it right from this beginner level. Finally, you'll need to do some warm-up still for cold emailing. And here what I recommend is extremely simple. Just stick to the built-in warm-up features in the software you choose for your campaigns. So either MWarm, which is the warm-up tool integrated into Mlist. If you purchase the multi-channel expert plan, you'll get a Lemwarm plan included. And with Instantly, you'll also have their warm-up feature built right in. No worries on that front. It will be very easy to use them directly within the tools. Now let's move on to the intermediate stack. So I recommend using this stack if you're serious about it. Develop outreach calls as an acquisition system for your business. And if you're ready to spend at least a little time preparing the data before pushing it into the campaigns, we know today that running basic, overly direct campaigns is working less and less well. We need to target even better than before and personalize as much as possible. That's exactly what this stack will allow you to do. We're sticking with something pragmatic and relative. Simple to use without creating a complicated mess, but you still need to be ready to get your hands a little dirty. So in this intermediate stack, what we're going to add to the basics we saw in the beginner stack is, first of all, Clay. Clay is the king tool today for everything related to go-to-market engineering. In this stack, I recommend using the starter plan, which is already more than enough to do some really interesting things. Now, I'm not going to make a video about Clay because it's such a powerful and comprehensive tool that it deserves its own video, all on its own. But to quickly sum up its role in the stack, what is it? It's really about preparing and enriching the data. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You can clean the data, for example, by normalizing the first name, normalizing the company name, so you can insert them as variables. Here, I'm using filters to keep only the profiles that are exactly within my ICP for a specific signal-based strategy. So there you go. I have a number of checks. I have company enrichment, where I find a lot of information about the company to then refine my personalization. And I use AI, which helps me both to filter again and to prepare an icebreaker. And then all of this I'll send directly into my Liam list or my instant clip. Speaking of enrichment, that can be done within Clay. As you may know, to find emails or phone numbers, you can use a cascade directly inside Clay. This is something I explained in my short video about email and phone enrichment. Basically, with this intermediate stack, if you start using Clay credits just to do simple B2B contact enrichment, you'll burn through all your credits very quickly, especially since you don't get that many in the starter plan. So what I recommend is to immediately add your own API keys for enrichment tools inside Clay so that you can actually control the cost of your enrichment. You can get plans for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many enrichment tools as you want. I'll suggest some to you. 3. The first one is Lead Magic because it's very powerful. It works pretty much everywhere. It's very international and it has a report that was taken and that people like. Incredible. The second one is Drop Contact. Why? Because I'm mainly addressing the French market. In France, Drop Contact is probably the one with the best data, in any case, the most comprehensive, with a rather impressive enrichment rate without even cascading over other tools. And the third one is Better Contact. I also talk about it in my dedicated videos on the subject, but it's actually a tool that cascades 16 other tools. So just by purchasing a plan here and entering your API key, you'll immediately get a lot of results and a very good enrichment rate. So that's it for the enrichment tools. The other tool, which is pretty standard nowadays and that I add, still with the idea of having an API key and inserting it either in Clay or in Lemlist or instantly, because you can also do this preparation, this data enrichment via prompts in these tools. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's the same logic. If you use the credits offered by these platforms, at first it might let you get started pretty easily and without much hassle, but very quickly it's going to get expensive. So actually, all you need to do is get a plan on your favorite LLM. You can try out several. It doesn't really matter. Then you'll use this API key to send your prompts. So for example, here you can see that when I use OpenAI, I'm actually using my own key. So I have an OpenAI API key, and that way I avoid using up the platform's credits. I can actually see all my usage on my dashboard, and it's broken down by project. So since we have several use cases, here you can see the usage for just one of our applications at Sendo. But let's say that this allows you to control the costs associated with using AI. It lets you set limits, for example, monthly limits and so on. And so if you also need to provide this kind of tool to your teams on this dashboard, you also have the ability to monitor things so that costs don't spiral out of control, because there can be, let's say, excessive use of AI. The third major difference is Phantom Buster. We can see it here. It's both a scraping tool, a tool that lets you source data, and even one that allows you to enrich it depending on your use case. In fact, it's quite a versatile tool. You may have heard of what could be considered a competitor, which is Apify. But what I really like about Phantom Buster is that, as you can see, I'll show you right away in their solution library. These are automations or scrapers that are coded by the Phantom Buster team. So actually, we know it's reliable and that it works well. And the idea is that you'll be able to scrape a huge amount of things on LinkedIn, on Sales Navigator, whether it's to retrieve your batches of contacts or company accounts, or to go and check, for example, likes and comments on certain posts. So as part of a signals-based strategy, you can also, if you're targeting not corporates, but businesses, brick and mortar, so small local businesses, restaurants, doctors, etc., you'll be able to scrape Google Maps quite easily. You'll be able to scrape the yellow pages quite easily, and so on. There are also other strategies that can be implemented by using Phantom Buster. For example, you can look at Slack, because sometimes there are very niche, highly specialized communities. You can use certain strategies, and you can also scrape YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, if your target audience is there. So that was for Phantom Buster. And finally, in the intermediate stack, these are optional tools, but this includes everything like Triggerfy. It allows you to identify signals on social platforms, especially LinkedIn, and Ocean, which is a B2B lookalike tool. So it's a tool where you provide, for example, the website of one or several existing clients or potential clients you'd like to have who are perfectly within your core. So your core target audience, and this tool will give you similar companies. and not just based on segmentation or categories like those you find on LinkedIn, but on much more refined and relevant criteria. The purpose of this video isn't to go into detail about these tools, which I cover quite thoroughly in the video, on the best B2B data sources, but rather to explain to you that in the intermediate stack, we add this because as an intermediary, today in 2025 to 2026, it is becoming essential to base your outreach on signals. Finally, the advanced level. Here, we're really at the expert level, which I recommend you use if you're scaling up the cold outreach channel for your business. And if you already know what you're doing and have a solid grasp of the basics, for us, this is basically the stack we use at the Sendo agency. So the first difference is that I recommend you go with Clay on the Explorer Pro plan. These plans have a clear advantage over the starter plan. Of course, it costs more, and if you're here to scale this method, in my opinion, it's well worth it and you'll see the benefits pretty quickly. One of the main differences as soon as you move up from the starter plan is that you'll be able to integrate connections, HTTP webhooks. In fact, we'll be able to set up so-called strategies. Evergreen strategies, meaning they work all the time and are self-sustaining with automations based on signals, for example. So for example, when you have a new job offer, something that comes in through Google Alerts, or someone who just got a new job and fits your ICP, all of that can now be added automatically, not manually, into tables on Clay. And then it can even be processed completely automatically if you've set the option in Clay for the columns to unfold. Be careful though, not to use up your credits, but at this stage, you should be familiar with these topics. And it can go directly into your Lemlist or whichever outreach software you use. So this allows you to do extremely powerful things. As I mentioned, this also allows for integration to push data directly to the main sequencing tools on the market. The other big difference is that here I recommend you switch to LinkedIn's premium version to Sales Navigator Advanced. That's the one that costs the most. So it's a bit of a budget. So on LinkedIn, on my Sales Navigator, I can create custom lists. And with this button that only exists in the advanced version, I'll be able to upload a CSV file. And so here, with the sourcing I did previously, if I give it the company name or even better, the website and also the LinkedIn URL, I'll actually be able to create, as you can see here, for example, a super precise list of accounts before going to look for the contacts. So here in this example, I have event agencies in the Netherlands. So we're dealing with something very precise. And from the moment I then go to source contacts, I'll be able to use this list to tell it that these are only contacts that match a specific filter, but within the scope of the list I created earlier. And compared to other tools, we have the advantage of staying within LinkedIn. I've already mentioned this in other videos, which remains in fact the ultimate source of data. And it's from this source that most other databases and tools get their data. So the advantage of being directly at the source is that you have more complete data and your data is much fresher, much more up to date. So actually, if we move on to this advanced stage, I recommend you choose this Sales Navigator option. To wrap up this advanced stack, what are the small differences after that? And it's that we've added Meldoso for the email infrastructure, because indeed, in some cases, when you want to scale this channel and really start to have a significant volume, Meldoso is an alternative to Mailpool, but with the added advantage of being even cheaper. So if we're talking about a lot of mailboxes, it might be worth looking into, and that's not mentioned. But obviously after the plans from Trigify, Yocean and others, we could potentially move up to a higher plan to simply get more credits and more features. And there you have it. You now know the ideal stack for doing your outbound, or at least the one I recommend, from beginner to expert level. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to support me by liking and especially by subscribing to the channel. It would make me really happy. If you're now looking to learn how to better use these tools, how to actually launch campaigns with them, well, I invite you to check out the other videos on the channel. You'll find plenty of tutorials. For example, there's the video where I break down 4 campaigns that worked really well in 2025 with top ROI, and that might give you some inspiration to launch your own campaigns. See you soon.